prescription for a healthy city. Please join with me in welcoming to the podium Dr. Walsh.
Watching how they work, I want to say that the city council has actually helped me to really strengthen.
So, here with a prescription for a healthy city. Please join with me in welcoming to the podium Dr. Walsh.
Morning, everyone. Thank you guys for coming out. I want to thank the mayor for having me here today. Committee, really enjoyed talking with you guys. I also want to thank a group that often doesn't get thanked, and that are my colleagues on the executive leadership team at the city of Pasadena. I know it sounds funny, but these are very hardworking people who really put the city first, really work hard to make the city better. So I really want to make sure I recognize them for all the hard work they do. I also want to recognize the city council. I want to say that the city council has actually helped me to really strengthen my belief in American democracy. And it's watching how they work together to make things happen and to really do what's best for the city really has emboldened my passion for this country and what we do. So I thank the city council as well for all the hard work they put in. With that said, we're going to get into our talk. And I was given this topic, the prescription for a healthy city, but I like the topic because I want to take us somewhere with this. And I'm going to start off in the book of Luke, the 19th chapter. Don't worry, this is not a sermon. But, you know, a little Bible at a prayer breakfast probably doesn't hurt. In Luke 19, the 41st verse, the Bible is speaking of Jesus, and it says, when he approached Jerusalem, he saw the city, and known in this day, even you, the things which make for peace. But now they have been hidden from your eyes. Jesus is sitting above, looking down at the beautiful city of Jerusalem, a city whose name literally means peace. As he looks at the city and he realizes what is to come upon the city, like most cities in world history, Jerusalem really is no different, except that it is a holy city by three of the major religions in the world. He looks down and he recognizes that peace has left the city. It's occupied at this time by the Roman Empire, and Rome eventually is going to fight the uprisings that continue to happen in Jerusalem. And as he looks at the city, he weeps. And there are only 2 times in the Bible that Jesus is recorded to have wept. This is one of them. And the other time, of course, is outside of the tomb of Lazarus. He can't stand the pain, and as he, in his prophetic eye, looks down through history and sees all of the suffering that would come to earth, and what makes for a healthy city? Well, there are a lot of things that we do, and Forbes produces a list of healthy cities, and they use some of these things to predict it. And Washington, D.C. has won 2 years in a row, and in 2010, Washington, D.C. dropped down to number 2, and Minneapolis, Minnesota jumped up to number 1. There's a picture here, and some of the things that they say make for a healthy city are open spaces, walking and biking trails, the health of individuals, quality healthcare services, access to fresh fruits and vegetables. Low smoking rates are very important. Low rates of certain diseases. All of these things are factored in, and they come up with these lists, and they say these are the healthiest cities in America. And of course, all of these things are critically important. And in fact, I love this city because the city has most of these things in place. But it's interesting because even though D.C. wins 2 years in a row and comes up second in the 3rd year, when you look at a train map of the city of Washington, D.C., and some of you have seen me show this before, if you start down here in in the southeast corner of the city, you have one of the poorest, most violent neighborhoods in all of the United States of America. Most prosperous neighborhoods in America as you travel out to Maryland. For every mile you travel. In fact, the average suburbanite near the Shady Grove station will live 20 years longer than the typical city dweller around Capitol Heights. And they won the healthiest city 2 years in a row. You see, because when we gauge health, sometimes we focus on things that seem to make a lot of sense, but being truly healthy is so much deeper than what your hemoglobin A1C is. Has a lot more to do with the average blood pressure of a city. And what I really want to bring to you is the next dimension in health. Where do you go to get beyond simply the rigors of numbers? And at the University of Miami in medical school, they taught me that you don't treat numbers, you treat patients. People run up to me all the time. It's only one of the bad things about people knowing I'm a doctor in the city is I literally will be out to eat somewhere and someone will sit next to me and say, you know, my cholesterol was checked and it's 300. So what else might make a healthy city? There are those that argue it's transportation systems. It's the skyline, economic growth, or affluent neighborhoods that such a city is a healthy city. But we know from cities like Los Angeles and New York and Chicago that you can have all of those things and still have sections of town that are devoid of health and of prosperity. In fact, if you look around the world, but we know from cities like Los Angeles and New York and Chicago that you can have all of those things and still have sections of town that are devoid of health and of prosperity. In fact, if you look around the world, cities like Mexico City and Santiago and Chile, New York and Chicago, that you can have all of those things and still have sections of town that are devoid of health and of prosperity. In fact, if you look around the world, cities like Mexico City and Santiago and Chile are cities that have Chicago, that you can have all of those things and still have sections of town that are devoid of health and of prosperity. In fact, if you look around the world, cities like Mexico City and Santiago and Chile are cities that have these incredible who's who in the city. These incredible splits in who's who in the city. So we speak about then the built environment. Again, Jesus in Mark 13. So we speak about then the built environment. Do you see these great buildings? Not in Mark 13, verse 1, he says, as he was going out of the temple, great privilege I had. Now, my mother was a single mother. Do you see these great splits in who's who in the city and of prosperity? In fact, if you look around the world, cities like Mexico are devoid of health, a healthy city. But we know from cities like Los Angeles and New York and Chicago that you can have all of those things and still have sections of town that are devoid of health and of prosperity. In Mark 13, splits in who's who in the city. So we speak about then the built environment. Again, Jesus in Mark 13.